Onirik's the definition is suggestive of dreams and yet looks and sounds grounded. Is that where the company name came from, or is that a fluke?
No, that's an astute piece of research. When we started out, we had a wider scope. We worked across a number of verticals, and our philosophy was always that the potential you have in your business for performance improvement is outside your dreams, if you like, or it's beyond what you think is possible. And we happen to have some tools and experience in our kit to help you realize that. So the concept was always helping our clients to realize their dreams in their business, but sometimes to actually make their dreams bigger than they were. So this concept of translate the dreams for improvement in performance, safety, whatever it might be, customer satisfaction. And realize that in a shorter time than you think is possible, and with a bigger outcome than you think is possible. And it is, I'll give you a story to go with that. It's a piece of history. It's real. A potential client in the past had come to us, and they wanted a training. And we said, oh, we don't do that. Why'd you come to us? And I said, what do you mean you don't do training? Well, we do performance improvement. Training might be a part of it, but what we sell is X% improvement in KPI Y in Z months or weeks or whatever. That's the gig. That's how we operate. That's how you get a return on investment. And so they said, all right, we're interested. And I said, well, of course, it's going to be a bigger investment. We're still interested because you're talking about guaranteeing the outcome. And we went through the normal process of facilitating a purchase. Others call that selling, but I call it finding out what your client actually wants and whether you can do it, and then how they would handle the change management around that, and walking them through a process where they figure out whether it makes sense or not. And we were doing the final presentation, one of my salespeople and I, in a boardroom full of senior representatives of that organization. And they liked what we proposed for them. This is what we'd do, how we would do it. This is the outcome, the way we manage the risks, all that sort of stuff. And one of them said, all right, so what sort of performance uplift do you think we can get? And without missing a beat, I said, oh, well, double your revenue. Right. And your reaction was somewhat similar to theirs. Half the room just lost the plot laughing, and the other half were dumbfounded and shocked. And their response was, we can't be running our business that badly. And my observation was, no, you're not. Actually, in terms of the way you're running your business, you're getting good outcomes. We're going to talk about some different ways of running the business, different philosophies, some more systemic operations within the organization, and some different skill sets in your people to get different results. And I said, but 100%, we'll double your revenue, and we'll do that in 120 days, and I'll guarantee it. If we do it, you pay us. If we don't, we don't. At which point, the room went deadly silent, and my credibility was a very round number. But we were earnest about that. We'd looked at their business. And we left the room, and my salesperson said, you blew that. We've completely lost the deal. And it's like, you start out with an honest relationship with a client, you do an honest relationship with a client, and you keep it going afterwards too. I said, tell them the truth. If they don't like it, it's appropriate that they say no.
Had you looked at their business before that, or
Yeah, we had studied their business. We had an idea of the uplift that was possible. And in my usual fashion, I was being conservative. So we got a call the next day, and they said, we've decided to give you the business. You're significantly more expensive than everyone else who's offering training. but you're offering a guarantee, so we have nothing to lose. And yeah, it was 120 days, 125 days later, back in that same boardroom after my team had been in and we'd done the first part of the project. And their project manager, we'd worked across 6 different channels, and their project manager was putting up the project outcomes. First slide, on time, on budget, results exceeded expectations. And one of the directors of the client stage whispered to the person next to them, "That doesn't happen around here very often." So you can tell the room was it was not as serious as you could imagine. There was a great deal of lightness and humor in the room because their project manager then put up the slides, and they were pretty much bar charts of target result, and this target's the 100% uplift. And the smallest uplift we've delivered was about 230% across these 6 channels of their business. And I shouldn't say we delivered it. We'd helped their people figure out how to do it, and they'd done it. And the conversation very quickly morphed to stop the presentation. We know what happened. All we want to know from these guys is what can they do for us next? And so we do come to our clients with this maverick mindset or crazy mindset that extraordinary potential exists in their business. Sometimes they're so busy running the business, they miss it. And as outsiders, we can see it, or we can bring technology that helps them tap into it. And that's our thrill. It is. It's our raison d'etre. We want to see them realize an incredible return on investment from any time that they invest with us. Yeah.
Is that the way you structure most of your deals? You walk in and hit them in the face with a rash promise?
A conservative promise from our perspective, but from their perspective, it does on occasion evoke impossible as the response. So much so that if you browse our website, you will find a little video clip about the impossible. A series of famous scientists saying things that were impossible that had either already happened or within a decade they happened. Yeah.
I think we've all gotten used to technology that surprises us, right? And I have a few questions specifically about the technology.
Far away with that, but here's a response to that. If you were, a paradigm shift is a fundamentally different way of doing things, and if you think about the technology, it isn't remarkable. The science behind it is old. The scientific principles are sort of 158, 159 years old to just under 100. They're well proven and tested and are applied in a lot of other electromagnetic exploration technologies. I think the difference is we put more principles into the process and the instrumentation than other approaches, but also the paradigm shift is the traditional approaches, if I can call them that, and I don't mean that to be an insult because I think they're virtuous. They still have their place.
Right?
Yeah. We use them because they work. But they focus on the geological structure, and we want that. That's useful. We rock in with an electromagnetic technology that focuses on where are the resources, whether it be minerals, oil, gas, hydrogen, water. How deep are they? What are their characteristics, pressures, temperatures, that sort of stuff. And we have a technology that can tell us that information. And so it becomes a useful addition to the exploration process. And so more typically, it has a real application at the front end because I look at my great big block. Here's the 5% or the 20% that has resource on it. Now I'm going to apply all those other things, the seismic, and then I'm going to come in and do my drilling with high success rates. That's for me. It's that paradigm shift of, hey, there's a lot of really good stuff that tells me about geology and structure already, and rocks.
Right.
What if I have something that tells me, hey, here's where this mineral is, and it's this grade. Is that economically viable? No. It might be good for artisanal mining, And I'm talking mining, but I could say just easily, hey, that's a small, deep, complex oil reserve. It's offshore. It's going to be it's going to be really expensive to get it out of the ground. Maybe we should just leave that there and go look for something that's more economically viable. Its goal is to do that sort of thing before
Right.
you go further. Yeah.
So you talked about building on the basics, but you have the little edge of being taking measurements from space as well,
Yeah, that's
which
nice.
is. I'm curious, what's part of your business is mining versus oil and gas?
It's about half half, slightly more oil and gas. Um, and we've actually in the last couple of years, and as I said in those notes that I wrote to you, we've been focused on the strategies and actions to start to scale because we've been through the exploration, we've been through the commercialization, and now we're really confident that this works. We've got a stack of case studies so that we can show people it's not smoke and mirrors. And in the first part of our scaling exercise, we did focus, as I said, on the financial sector, but also the mining sector. And our big recruitment drive that I talked about at the second half of 2024 was focused on building our capability to support oil and gas. And so we added to our sales resource. We've also added to our channel partners in that space. And
So
you'll see us
what's your
focus on it more.
total employee count at this point?
Oh, wow. It changes on a daily basis, and I'm not kidding. I mean, I went up by I signed off three more yesterday because the back end of that exercise in 2024 is still sort of trickling through. But we're looking at this point at something like 111 people in the sales function, and we're looking at in the when I answer the question, I got to be careful because there's us, there's Onirik. We're the representative or partner of CTAC. CTAC is the owner of the intellectual property, the technology, and they're our delivery arm. So in answering that question, I'm sort of talking our numbers. But I should add the CTEC numbers as well. And we've got about 67 external contractors that we work with, and then another team of delivery consultants that are sort of similar size. At this point, CTEC is around those sort of numbers. I think it's 47. And as I said in one of my earlier answers, the capacity to run about up to 6 projects in parallel at any one time, and that's the field work is the constraint or the bottleneck there in terms of when we do the satellite work and the lab, processing data. We have the capacity to do a lot more at the same time.
It sounds like that right now you're in a heavy sales phase and
Yeah,
growth phase, but
and growth phase and adding channel partners. See, I haven't put channel partners in there yet. I've confessed that that's a key part of our strategy for going to market, and it is a key part of how we want to scale. And so, some of our channel partners add 200, some of our channel partners add a lot more to that resource. But our channel partners tend to be our path within a country or a territory, and we do have partners all around the world. We've got them in the Americas, sort of, from the Canada, US down to the South Americas. We've got them in Africa and Europe.
I mean, how does that translate into crews on the ground? If someone wanted
Yeah, at the
something in,
moment when we talk crews on the ground, that's what I mean. Up to six in parallel out in the field with our people. As we train and develop more folks to do that work, and there's a prerequisite. They have to be a geologist or a
sure.
geophysicist. I mean, those sort of people, you can just pluck them off trees. They get them on street corners, not.
Well, I don't
um,
know. You're saying a lot of the people, a lot of the geologists say, no, you can't do that. I think some of them might be saying, oh no, please tell me you can't do that because it's
yeah,
good that you're bringing some in.
it's a really good question. One of the things you said, well, one of the questions I should ask that I've missed, and after I've written my response, what can't you do with that tech? One of them was what are the misconceptions people have about it? misconception number one, this thing turns water to wine. No, I said earlier, it fits with a lot of other technologies. It's 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 not the second coming, right? And then one of the other misconceptions we get is that that really the technology makes the geologist irrelevant or the geophysicist irrelevant. I had a conversation only recently where a geologist said to me, "My God, this stuff really works. What the hell do we need drilling for?" And I'm pulling back, saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I get the humor in there, but seriously, you and I know why you still need drilling, why you still need these other things, and we know why it doesn't displace geologists and geophysicists. I think if anything, it makes them even more important. What it does is give them more data to interpret." And we still need their wisdom to make the strategic decisions about how you're going to tap into this resource, how you're going to design the wells, how you're going to design the mine, all that sort of stuff. What it does is allow the geologists to make smarter decisions because they've got a wider set of data points. They got more data points, they got more data, they got different data, they got new data. So they're getting a lot more insight, so that they make smarter decisions. But the other thing reason why I think it makes it more important is with existing exploration budgets, it allows them to get more done in less time, so that they're actually able to deliver much more value for the organizations that employ them. And so the geologists who look at this and go, "Hey, it makes us redundant," guys, I think you're misunderstanding. When we work with clients who've used this tech for a while, they, if you like, the commercial executives and the geology team each fairly quickly realize how the additional information allows the geology team to deliver a lot more value and to get more outcomes and actually makes them more precious to the organization. It's the opposite to what people think.
Yeah, based on what I've read and looked at so far, it would certainly offer up more prospects.
It's their experience and their understanding of geology and how things form in nature. So some of the smartest guys are, well, I work with a lot of geologists. Some of them, they're the smartest people I work with, and I mean that because it's their systemic thinking patterns that, yes, they apply them to geology, but when you pull them out and apply them in a wider sphere, you begin to understand that they have real gifts, and they're a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah, no, they're the. I guess the joke is they're down to earth.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Oh, and with our jokers, they like to talk dirty. Yeah.
are you kind of unique, or is there any competition? Is there anybody else doing this
At this
or
point,
trying to do it?
I think there are some others who may be trying to do it. I think they probably face a 5 or 10 year R&D process to get there. It would be good to see others, which is a funny thing to say. Hey, you know what? The market's huge. The value proposition for this stuff. Look, one of the reasons we get excited and passionate about it is it brings big value, not just to our resources sector client base. Yeah, one of the things I said to you is we've worked with the financial sector, and we're taking organizations that typically invest in exploration, and they do what's traditionally seen as speculative high risk investment. Their money's tied up for a long time. That's a lot of money. Success rates are low, but when they hit pay dirt, the return is enough to justify it. We're fundamentally changing the equation for them, where now their money can be tied up for a lot shorter time. The success rates are significantly higher, and in terms of finding commercially viable assets, and still they're getting those great returns. So as one hedge fund manager said, this is disruptive for the financial sector as well, at least the financial sector that's involved in resources, because you've shifted the profile your technology allows us to shift the profile from speculative investment to a very attractive investment. And he said almost, if not almost certainly, more attractive than venture capital. And he contrasted the outcomes. He said, my investments in venture capital are 3 to 5 years, 30% success rate, 5 to 10 times my money back. And he said, now contrast it with, your numbers. He said, it's an equal or better deal. So he was, and then he immediately talked about the amounts of money and number of projects that he wanted to do in that space, and how we could, help him improve the performance of the projects that he was already invested in. So yeah, you can see it brings value there too, but also brings value to nations, especially developing nations. Because one of the things that came out of that was the investors that we're talking to are saying, you know what, we normally ask for a huge chunk of equity when we invest, because of the risk. You've changed the risk profile so significantly, we're prepared to negotiate smaller equity claims.
Yeah, 80 to
We're funding things.
94% is kind of, that's another one of those ones that would get
Yeah,
people's attention from the
yeah, it
investor
is.
side, certainly.
And so in developing nations, they can get a bigger piece of equity, in their natural assets, and investors are happy to give it to them because they're now seeing the risk is that they're taking, the investors are taking is much lower. So it's you get passionate when you've got something that can deliver those sort of outcomes.
What's a huge success for Onirik in, let's say, 5 years in terms of growth, revenue, employees?
My perception is less about on Onirik and more about the industry. And we have plans. You'd expect that. We have strategies, we have financial targets to, and I don't play them down. They follow from our bigger vision and mission. If you will, those things will trail and follow if we get the outcome we want. And our outcome is that the technology is understood and adopted and exploited for all it's worth widely in the industry. And we have all the resources to back that up through our channel partners and internally. Yes, we'll be a much, much bigger organization and we'll be doing, a multi-billion-dollar turnover. But that follows from having helped the industry to do more, to do it in a more environmental way. And we have, you see, there's all sorts of interesting things going on with hydrogen exploration at the moment, and it's to some extent they're challenged by how to find the stuff, and it's like, hey, we can do that so easy with this technology. We can help build that industry. That's an outcome that we dream about, to see that happen. Sure, they've got to figure out transport and storage and combustion challenges. But there's new technology that's coming out that addresses that. You look at the mining side of things. We're talking about this transition to electric vehicles. I won't jump into the argument about whether the rationale is justified or not, but we're doing it.
You're better staying away from that one.
I work with geologists who are scientists, and we have this philosophy that is, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And that's actually sticking a knife in the ribs of the climate change guys and twisting it a bit, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, we won't go that path, but it's just that I'm a scientist. Yeah, A causes B. Okay, but what if B causes A?
Yeah.
Did you test that?
And,
Let's fix it.
and
Yeah, and I'm thinking, as a principle, the transition to electrical transport, as long as we can have clean energy generation, it makes sense. I'll do it for that reason. But I want to know the reason that I'm doing it is sound. I might also do it if it's economically viable and it lowers the cost of transport, so it's beneficial. However, let's park the provocative debate about climate change. As a scientist, I demand scientific evidence that stacks up. I look for consistency, and when it falls down, I go, your hypothesis is flawed. Now go back to the drawing board and plug that gap. And that's the problem I have with the climate change stuff. There's just too often there are gaps.
and also, as a scientist, we're challenged, and that's part of the job is to question the
yeah, that's it.
prevailing
That's
thought.
science.
So
It's
so
question. It's not
you have to
religion
question
where
that.
I
If you
yeah,
accept something as a fact, you're not really
yeah,
being a scientist.
correct.
You're espousing someone's point of view. Just like I like the plane, the heavier than air flight. You
Yeah,
can say that,
yeah.
but
I mean,
as a
that was Lord
scientist,
Kelvin.
you have to ask, can we really do this? Let's try. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, yeah. And the really interesting thing about that was it was Lord Kelvin who said it, right? So for the audience who are not scientists, right, we have a whole temperature scale named after this guy, right? He's he's fundamental in physics and chemistry and science. He's a famous individual who's had profound and valuable contribution to the field of science. Yet the guy said, I can categorically guarantee that we will never be able to build heavier than air flying machines. And he said that 5 years before the Wright brothers, but he said it about 40 years after a certain Englishman had built a steam-powered
Right.
flying machine. And it's like scientists just don't say that. The scientists say, um, you know what, we think we understand gravity, but tomorrow there could be an announcement from some research that tosses that to the wind.
Right. I've got one last question
Yeah.
for you. The
Okay.
depth and the material I can understand, but how about pressure and temperature?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's one of those things where it came from lab work. So the guys are going, hey mate, yeah, can we get it's sorry, back up. Yeah. I think one of the reasons we have a great future is the senior executives are saying to the exploration team, guys, I can't handle these 5, 10, 15, 20-year explorations periods anymore. Shrink them. All right, we'll come along. Guys, yeah, here's some technology that'll help you do that. When there's pressure from someone to get the answer, you go looking for it. So there was, hey, can we get pressure or temperature? There were guys in the lab. Don't know, let's see. And so initially in the lab, what they were doing was we'd have liquids and gases in containers, and we're varying the pressure and looking at the spectral signatures and seeing if anything shifts, because you understand our technology is looking at, among other things, spectral signatures. And lo and behold, there are these slight phase shifts that you get in the spectral lines that correlate with the pressure shifts. And
So it was there
so
all along.
yeah, so it was there all along. And so then out to the field. Yep. Oh, there it is. It's there. Okay. Then give it to the guys. This is what we think it is. Drill it. But before that, out to the field and onto known assets, and then measuring the known assets. And oh my gosh, there it is. It's there, and it's consistent with what the guys have found when they've drilled. And then finally, Greenfield, we think that's the pressure they drill it, and we're finding that that's what it is. We sort of talk about that 94% precision. I know we can do better when we've got some other conditions precedent met, but we'd like to talk about something conservative. That's my.
So
It's
that
funny, we get
basically
really
was
apologetic. I can't tell you how many times we get apologetic about the 94% accuracy on our numbers, placement, pressures, temperature, depths, that sort of stuff. And we get laughed at by the geology guys. They go, what are you apologizing for 94% for? Or because we can do better, or we'd like to. That's kind of the average. That's where it is.
one time back to seismic. You said in your notes and just recently that you still need the seismic.
3D, we can build 3D models. You've got the layers and the depths, and so
Yeah.
the top of the layer, bottom of the layer, that sort of stuff. Yeah, we don't. It's not seismic so much for the depth as our focus is on the hydrocarbon. So we're giving you a lot of information about where the oil, the natural gas, the water, the condensate are. If you've got salt, well, we can do that too. I mean, we've got the mineral refiner tech too. Salt, the three main forms of salt that you get around hydrocarbon. They're minerals, so we can map those too, and we'll
Yeah.
give you a decent idea of literally what form the salt is, but also the thickness and form of the layers. But it's so what our technology is good at is getting the natural resource, but it's and it will get the fault lines and stuff like that, but it's not great on porosity,
Ah,
right? it's focused not on the rock, it's focused on the resource. So we can give you, the volume of a reservoir, but in terms of knowing what's there without understanding the porosity, straight away, well, now I need my seismic. And seismic has given me a lot more structural information about the layers of rock between, the surface and the asset. You put the two together. As I said, I don't think it'll ever displace seismic. I think if anything, what it's going to do, it will reduce the size of the area that you're going to apply the seismic to, right? So, hey, I've looked at my 1,000 square kilometer block, and here's the 100 square kilometers of that's I'll just hallucinate. There's one asset, and it's circular. That's where it is, and it looks economically viable. Now I'm going to come in and put my seismic there and get a lot more information about the geology, the rock, and the structure. Yeah. But the folks who then think, oh my God, the seismic industry is going to collapse. What a joke. No, it's not. Because we shrink the amount of time that it takes to get your exploration done profoundly, you're probably going to do 5 or 10 times as many exploration projects with the same or less budget. And what that means is, okay, my seismic projects might be a little smaller and they're totally focused over the assets, but I'm going to do 5 or 10 times as many of them. And so I don't think the seismic industry will shrink. In fact, if we actually stimulate net exploration and stimulate the success rate on exploration.
Again, more prospects means
growing. Yeah,
for everybody.
And our approach is, for folks who are focused on seismic now, it's like, keep doing that. We'd love to partner with you. We'll give you another toolkit to add to your repertoire. Take both, become a channel partner, take both to your market.
That's the reason I brought up the question about spec shooting is because, as everybody knows, the oil industry cycles, and in the down cycles, we lose people and crews. And what the company that I work with, they said, we have these people, let's just go run some spec lines. And so there's a lot of seismic information out there that was for sale, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So if they saw something that was interesting, then maybe they'd pull you in. And so there's no limit to the amount that you can do as far as a satellite. It's just ground crew.
Yeah. Of course, there's a limit to the amount we can do from satellite because we get 48 sets of data. We get it across 5 time periods. We're processing 120,000 data points per spectrograph. It's this crunching, but come on, Jeff, just put another box next to it. yeah, that's the right answer. And we have a capacity now, but we can scale more easily by adding processing power, and we do need some more geologists and geophysicists in the lab to be part of the interpretation. But scaling the lab processing is simpler than getting experienced geologists put in the field with the field instrumentation. Yeah.
So it sounds like your 2 main focus groups for hiring is geologists and salespeople. Is that?
We're about to back off on the salespeople. I think we have enough to cover the global market now. From here on in, as the worker volume goes up, we would be looking for geologists. You bet. Yeah.
One of the great things about this is it's non-invasive, right? That's one of the things that makes this a safer process, certainly than.
It's a safer process, but there are some places that we go exploring where the joke amongst our field team is you take 1 pace to the left and your vertical altitude changes by 1,000 paces. And we do have and we do have different ways of operating in those risky terrains. And we're conscious of the safety of our people. And there are some places where people ask for exploration, and it's like, well, if we send a private army in with our guys.
That's another area I didn't want to get into was the legal thing. Can you prospect from outer space without letting people know you're looking at their backyards?
Well, the answer is obviously, we could. We don't. We have a principle that says show us you've got the license to explore here. We have to, and that makes sense. There are some countries that are very sensitive about that. India, for example, has laws that says if you want to do anything in terms of looking at their country from space. They've actually got a ministry or a department, whatever you want to call it, that you have to go to and get approval.
Right.
And I get it. They don't want you looking at, say, for their military installations or something like that. But
You're,
so
you're talking.
we're conscientious about that. We don't want to burn our
Yeah.
relationships with any nations.
You're talking about great vertical drops. One of the ways to avoid that is can you put these instrument readings that you normally have people trekking around or having a boat offshore? Can you put
Yeah,
them?
or a car if it's flat terrain. Yeah, you can put them in drones. You can put them in helicopters,
Okay,
or
so
we can just crank up the precision on the satellite work. So see, when you look at our literature, you see, we say the satellite phase is what we use for the wide area survey, and we're doing it typically at the minimum viable precision for that context and that resource. But enough to determine that, hey, there's something there, it's at scale, and it's economically viable. And then the field work is where we're going in and wanting to get that sort of 10 or 100 times greater precision, a lot more data points. But if that's truly not viable, then we can go back and do the satellite phase with a lot. We just shrink the scales and do a lot more data points over smaller areas. Still not as good as the field work, but typically good enough to move to what it depends what our customer's looking for, but mostly we realize that they're looking for drilling guidance at some point from us. Enough detailed modeling and mapping to do their drilling, and we can get them to that point.
great. Well, again, I appreciate your time. It's Onirik. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. Thank you for your time, and thanks for getting up at 6 o'clock and answering some of my questions, I guess, before you even came on the call. So
That's okay.
it was a pleasure
My
talking
pleasure.
to you.
Likewise, I enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate the opportunity.